Hey, real quick before we get started, Content Matters with a Z is our content marketing company that helps entrepreneurs tell their own stories to those who care. And here's the thing, we think every entrepreneur that is willing should have their own content platform. And we want to help make that happen, both by working directly with entrepreneurs and by sharing our own stories, exploring the craft of content marketing. Content Matters, one piece of content at a time. Learn more at CazContent.com. Welcome to the podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, introspective podcast conversations helping build and protect your business one podcast at a time, a CazSource production. This is an EP1 episode. EP1 is a shorter form style episode where we focus in on one specific topic. In this EP1 episode, the focus is on delegation. We feature founder and entrepreneur Tonya Thomas. Tonya runs Team Delegate. Team Delegate was founded on the premise of helping leaders create the freedom they need to take their business to the next level. Team Delegate started it in 2001. They're a virtual assistant company, and they work with entrepreneurs, small business owners, and professionals who are struggling to stay organized and are swimming in administrative overwhelm. Let's get into this EP1 episode on delegation and welcome Tonya Thomas. One of the things I was thinking about, Tonya, when you had reached out and you're talking about our podcast is a focus, because a lot of people will reach out to us. And just like I'm sure a lot of people reach out to you and everybody else that's out there and reaching out to us for all different reasons, right? Perhaps it's business related. People are just trying to get in your feed. They're trying to interrupt you. And it's complicated no matter what position you're in to say, well, what do I do with this information? And so I thought a good place to start would be thinking about the minimalist mindset. And yeah, there's extreme examples of a minimalist. And I know on your blog, for example, you talk about an uncluttered desk, clear your workspace, focus in. That's no different than your email, your text messages, the task, your to-do list, like your social media accounts, your phone, all of it is so important to think through, because like when someone like you, Tonya, reaches out, do I even have the bandwidth to handle that? Does my team have the bandwidth to handle that? And just what are your thoughts around being uncluttered and perhaps, like I said before, the minimalist mindset?
That's a good question, because if you have a lot going on, it makes it difficult for you to be able to focus on what you need to focus on. And that's something that I was actually thinking about too. And I know I put that post on there, it was about an uncluttered desk, but I'm thinking uncluttered desk, uncluttered mind.
Right.
When you have cluttered and messiness around you, it's hard for you to think clearly and focus. And I mean, not only from a physical standpoint, talking about desk, but also from a mind standpoint, when you have a lot going on as an entrepreneur, especially, you can have so many different things that you want to be able to do, and that's just clutter in your mind.
Yeah. What types of books or what type of research have you gone to in your past, in your experience, or is it just more something that you've dealt with internally and you just know it to be true? Is there any people that you pay attention to from that uncluttered thought process that you have?
Yes, it's something that I deal with, but a lot of people, I have a lot of different people that I listen to, thought leaders. Kelly Roach is one. I listen to her a lot. And April Franks, different people that I listen to that keep me motivated and keep me focused on what I need to do, even though I have a lot of different things in my head that I want to be able to accomplish.
What's one thing? It's hard because I've seen this before. Like if you want to clean out your closet, one of the best ways to get started is just take one article of clothing. Just start with one. Like, because if you look at the whole closet, it's daunting, and it's very daunting for a lot of people, so there's different levels of who can handle it, who can't. Some people can take it on, no problem. If someone's trying to unclutter, let's say their office space, is there any one thing that because they're not going to accomplish it overnight, right? This is a process, and it's an ongoing process. And once you've uncluttered it, a lot of times it just fills back up. Is there any tips that you would have for someone like just to get started, say, hey, well, here's one thing that you can do to just get going?
Sure. Typically, what I like to say is break things down, because I've written and talked about that too. If you have a large project or task that you want to accomplish, the easiest thing to do is just think of it in steps and take that one step and focus on that. So if, for example, you have this big project and you think about it in the steps and you write it down, and it's one thing that you want to be able to do, because otherwise, if you think about it as a whole, you get confused and you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just breaking it down into small pieces.
That's hard to do, to break it down, because I've seen it, whether it's myself or people on our team. Because when you're breaking it down to say, you're trying to explain it almost to yourself in a way, like you're going to break down each piece and here's what I'm going to do first and second and third and go down that path. And then it's harder because now we're getting into this word delegation to say, okay, I've broken it down. I can do these steps. I know how to do these steps. If I bring in Tonya to do these steps, well, now I got to spend time with Tonya and helping her do that step. And maybe I want to like back up even a little bit more because we're talking about how we think about things, the psychology of it all. Why is it so hard for us as humans to delegate tasks to other people or other systems?
Good question. And what I see most is the couple of things. It's fear of letting go and having somebody else to do it. And then the other part is what you're talking about. It's just overwhelming because you're thinking most of the time people just have the stuff in their head because they've been the person doing it. It's not documented anywhere. And so what I always suggest for people to do is if you're doing it for the first time, do it verbally. If you're giving something to somebody, then that way they can take notes and that takes some of the pressure off of you because they can take the notes. You're giving it verbally. Don't worry about trying to write it out to give it to them because if you do that, you'll never do it.
Yeah. I have someone in my company right now and I've been working with him on delegation because he's very focused on doing it himself. And we talk openly about it and he knows it. And I think that's one of the key in anything in life, right? I think is an awareness. And that's something possibly could have talked about too and throw it in there, but I need to delegate. I need to delete. I need to do these things. And that awareness allows you to maybe take that step back to say, okay, here's the steps. Here's the process I'm now going to follow, right? That I think is very important to come to that part in your career or your work to have an awareness about it and then take a step back and then go forward.
You're right. Having that awareness is the first step. So, and then I tell people too, when we're talking about it, being cognizant of it when you're working and actually having something, a pad there on your desk or whatever. And as you're doing something, thinking, is this something that I should be actually doing? Is this the best use of my time? If it's not, write that down. And that's how you kind of help formulate what it is that you need to maybe give to somebody else.
Absolutely. It's a lot to break it down, write it out to you, do all these different things, break out the steps because we have these boards, these systems, Planner from Microsoft, right? Trello and Asana. They're great. They're great tools to have. But a lot of times tools are just like, it's like, yeah, go out to the garage and all these different, I don't use these tools, right? I'll go bring someone else to do the work. And then you can't find it. And you're like, well, where's the Phillips head screwdriver? I can't find it. It's like what you're saying is just explain it to the person and work through it that way and communicate. And even if they're in local or they're face to face or they're in another state or another country, that there are ways to chat, to have this back and forth and to verbalize it. I think that's really good because I think we do struggle with that. I've seen it before with anybody, like I said before, myself or my team, to get to that point. So to make it easy to verbalize it is, like you're saying, the problem still is to get to that step. So even maybe it's backing it up even a little bit more because I've heard people say it's just easier if I do it. And it is a fear. It's a control thing. Is it just, what else is it that's stopping people? Because I know that's holding a lot of us back.
Yeah, so it is fear because, again, like you're saying, people are afraid to be able to give it something. And the other tip I like to give is start small. I mean, what is one thing that you're not as afraid of to let go as the other? I mean, you don't want to start, if you're in the fearful place, you don't want to give everything all at once. You don't want to give something big. What's one little thing that you can delegate to somebody that you don't think is going to have you too nervous about them doing it and just kind of dipping your toe in the water?
Right. Because what also happens is if you give too much, you might be overwhelming the person that you're giving it to. And so I think there has to be this understanding that, because I've done this, I'll give too much, too many things early. And it's like, oh, wow, wait a second, back it up a little bit, help me out, help me understand this better. So there is that overwhelming aspect, right? That we've seen. You see this in a lot of different ways. I've seen it. So let's take a company and CEO. And for example, we have a marketing company and I've seen other companies try to do the work internally. They go find someone who's the closest thing they have to a CMO or a marketing director, or congratulations, you didn't raise your hand. You're now a social media director for the week. And that isn't necessarily something that they're trained to do, fully understand to do, but they'll take on the task because they'll do whatever they have to do to help the company keep their job, all those things. But it becomes overwhelming to where that work will then impact other aspects of their work and of their mindset. And then ego gets in the way. And that's this long track to say, we've now given too much stuff to somebody too. So you can delegate, but you can't delegate everything. You can't just say, hey, I don't want to do it, so I'm going to find the closest person to me and I'm going to go hand that off to them. Do you see that a lot where it's almost like an over delegation? So kind of on the other side of the spectrum.
Sure. Yeah. And you're right. You can give too much. And then I guess that's what they call advocating, where you're just trying to dump everything on one person and you're thinking that's going to help me. But it's not, because you're right. You're overwhelming the person. And especially if they're new to that role or new to doing it, that's not the best way for them to be able to start out either. So again, yeah, you don't want to go in that side either. The best thing, and what I usually kind of tell people to do too, is have your list.
Yeah.
What are the things that you want to delegate to somebody and prioritize it?
Yeah.
And then start with, like I mentioned, the one thing, and then give them that. Once they've got that, then check, that's done. Move on to the next thing. Doing it in an organized fashion versus just, dumping everything at once.
Yeah. Anyone can do this, right? This doesn't just have to be the CEO or the managing director of a company. I mean, this could be someone who's just getting started or someone at any part of your career, right? I mean, this is for everybody.
Right. A lot of times I'm talking about small business owners and entrepreneurs, but you're right. Delegating can come in any role for anybody to be able to do. And still, we want to follow those same rules of doing it in an organized fashion. Having a plan versus just dumping things on people and not having a type. But if you don't have a plan, I think it was at Benjamin Franklin, if you don't plan, then you fail or something like that.
Yeah.
Can't quote
gotcha.
it right.
No,
but
that's right.
You want to have that plan.
I get it. So kind of like bringing it a little bit full circle, you have the delegation, you have the minimalism, you have all these different things. Because we're talking about when you minimize what you have to work on, a lot of times it's, hey, I have this list. And let's say there's 10 things on the list, just the ease of numbers. You're not just saying, hey, let me give these 10 things to someone to do. A lot of times there might only be one thing that you have to do on that list or two things. And maybe those 8 other things just aren't as important as you once maybe thought they were. The word delete comes up. Just get rid of it, discard it, just remove it from everybody's to-do list. Is that something that you think about quite a bit as well as it refers to this conversation?
Sure, because I actually take people through an exercise too, and I call it a brain dumping exercise, where they do just kind of brain dump everything that they do onto a piece of paper. And then the next step of doing that is delegate, delete, do it. Whether they go to something they're going to delegate to somebody they're going to do, or it's something that, like you just mentioned, really is not that important. And so it just gets deleted.
Yeah. Something I say quite a bit on this podcast is to say to myself, for people that are looking to start a business, it's never been easier to start a business. It's never been harder at the same time to build that business. And it's actually harder to start the business in many ways too, because of all the paperwork that goes into it and just taxes and sales and marketing and just you name it. The list goes on and on and on. And there's something that you're probably really good at that you need to focus on. So just real quick, kind of taking this back to the beginning. I mean, obviously you saw a need to build a business, a team delegate to help other people out, because I would imagine that you saw a need for it for yourself.
Correct. I always say I know both sides of the business. I've been in the virtual assistant industry for over 20 years, and I was a VA myself for a lot of that time. And I kind of hit a wall, I guess, so to speak, where I didn't really know what was going on, didn't know if it was burnout or what it was. And I kind of stayed in that spot for a year or two. And then I wondered, if it was something else that I wanted to do. And then it hit me that I just no longer wanted to be the technician anymore. And that's when I decided to scale and have, of course, a team of people working with me that help provide the service. But so I know what being in this situation is like now. I've been a technician and now I know what it is to be the actual CEO role and have space to be able to even think. So that's what I am passionate about, is helping people be able to delegate and clear that space so that they have time to work in their zone of genius, I like to say. Because if you don't have that space and freedom to be able to do it because you're working in the business instead of on it, You just won't get there and have that time.
Yeah, no, I think it's important for someone who have gone through the process, to have lived it, to seen it, to say, hey, I can help other people out with this because I've struggled with it. And here I am, I'm going to build a business. And because there's that thing of, I've been there before, and you can talk to someone like myself and guide me through this, because that's the cool thing right now is there's just people everywhere. And now we can reach them very easily, right? Through a Zoom, through a phone call, through text, and pick your platform and say, there's been generations now of people that have done things. And now we're at a time where we have these devices and this technology to be able to take advantage of it to help each other out, to say, what's the best way to build your business? I guess one of those issues becomes is like, where does it stop, right? How many people can you talk to? How many? There's some emotional intelligence, I guess, you have to have with that to figure out like what decisions to make. And that's a whole nother episode altogether is, decision making, right? And we talk about that quite a bit. But it is that thing to where that's where the decluttering comes in. That's where the delegation comes in. That's where someone like you can come in, Tonya, and help business owners out, help anybody in a company out. And I take it as you're just trying to support other small business owners, other entrepreneurs. People can read your blog. They might never use your company, but perhaps you help them out. And I think there's something very powerful in that to allow you to probably continue to just keep going, because the good things will happen, right? Things will take care of themselves in many ways. So Tonya, I appreciate working on this because it's that important. And we talk about it constantly, and I'm still working through it, right? I think most entrepreneurs would admit that they're still trying to figure out, how do they delegate? What's the best way to do it? I overwhelmed this person. I did this. I shouldn't have worked on this task. And then just moving forward from there, right? Not getting too lost in your head and going forward from it. But Tonya, what's the best way people can learn more about you, your company, connect with you?
My website, teamdelegate.com. I have a podcast that I'm going to begin, Unbottleneck Your Business. And then I'm also very active on LinkedIn, Tonya Thomas.
That's awesome. So exciting that you're starting a podcast. I mean, these types of conversations are so important, I think. And like I've always said on this, if it was just you and I talking, that was worth it for me. I hope it was worth it for you. But then at the same time, we can share it with our team and you can share it with people, and hope you do. But Tonya, this has been excellent. Thank you so much for talking to us about delegation and your experience with it and your understanding of it and your very simplistic way of explaining it, which doesn't surprise me that someone who focuses on delegation has a way of breaking it down to something very small. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
One of my favorite things about CADSource is the opportunity to chat with amazing business leaders and entrepreneurs. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn or visit us at cadsource.com. Thank you for listening to this CADSource production, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time. Content Matters with a Z is our content marketing company that helps entrepreneurs tell their own stories to those who care. And here's the thing. We think every entrepreneur that is willing should have their own content platform. And we want to help make that happen, both by working directly with entrepreneurs and by sharing our own stories, exploring the craft of content marketing. Content Matters, one piece of content at a time. Learn more at CAScontent.com.